Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Today is first Saturday. And so, you know how we do it on first Saturday. First Saturday is a destination deep dive. All righty. So, we are just giving some more people some time to get in. And I am also trying to set some stuff up. Okay. All righty. So here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so glad you are here with us today. And so whether you just joined us or you've been hanging out for a minute, you are right on time. So a quick question to get us warmed up. And you can answer this in the chat if it's ever happened to you. Have you ever come home from a trip and thought, huh, that wasn't bad, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be either? Maybe it was more exhausted than you anticipated it would be. Maybe it felt rushed. Maybe it was absolutely beautiful, but you didn't exactly feel relaxed. If that's ever happened to you, just drop a word in the chat. Words like maybe tired, rushed, overplanned, beautiful but exhausting, whatever it is, or use your own words. Just find a word that best explains how you felt after that trip and put it in the chat. While you're doing that, I just want to give everyone a moment to come on in, because I know most of us weren't just sitting around waiting on this live to get started. You were probably scrolling. We do that a lot. You were probably multitasking. Maybe you're still doing that. You're still multitasking. And it's okay, because what we're talking about today is exactly why that happens. So whether you're here live or you're catching the replay, again, you are right on time. Alrighty, so I don't talk about travel the way it's usually presented online. I don't plan trip based on what looks good online. I plan travel based on how a destination behaves in real life, on your body, on your energy, on your patience, and how much thinking you want to do while you're supposed to be relaxing. Let's keep it real, because if I wanted to think that hard, I would have just stayed home, right? Okay, because again, let's be honest, especially us as women, most of us, we don't need another situation where we're managing something else. And so, yes, the way a destination feels, it matters more than how it photographs. Now, ladies, please don't get me wrong. Those photos, they matter. They matter a lot, because we are going to take those selfies. I just know we are. And, we're going to let the world know we are. As a matter of fact, some of us are going to be, holding up the phone in a way that's slightly aggressive, like, I paid for this. So I know those pictures, they matter. So, but what I want to happen when you're taking your selfie, I want you to look good and I want you to feel good when you're doing it. Because again, let's be honest, we do act a certain way when those selfies, they just don't come out right. Alrighty? So again, today is Destination Deep Dive. For anyone that's new here, every first Saturday is a Destination Deep Dive. So over the last couple of weeks, I have been walking through the destinations on my 2-week escorted Europe trip. And what I want to do today is zoom in on one specific decision. Alrighty, so we're cruising from Athens to Ravenna, which sits just outside of Venice. It's just outside of Venice, and so we're spending 3 full days pre-cruise in Athens. Logically and geographically, that choice makes sense to anyone. It's what comes after the cruise that surprises a lot of people because after the cruise, we end in Rome. And that's usually where I see pause, that quiet. Wait, what? Why Rome instead of Venice? So let's talk about that for a minute. Alrighty. So number one, let's talk about the cost. Okay. Listen, Venice is absolutely stunning. Venice is iconic. I'm just turning my camera here. Venice is iconic, but post-cruise Venice can be surprisingly expensive for how much effort it still requires. Okay, rooms tend to be much smaller. Getting around often involves water taxi, and this is not a luxury. It's simply how you get from point A to point B. So in Venice, convenience is something you usually have to pay extra for. And let me tell you, Venice will happily charge you luxury prices while you're still confused and tired. And I don't consider confusion a luxury experience. Okay, alrighty. So reality check number 2 is, movement and your luggage. Here's the part nobody prepares you for. Venice is not suitcase friendly, especially after a cruise. You're dealing with bridges, stairs. Remember, you're using boats instead of cars, hotels you can't just pull up to, and yes, long stretches of cobblestone. Venice is full of stone paving and historic cobblestone style streets, especially, along pedestrian routes, across bridges, near hotels that are not directly along the main canals. If you've ever had to pull a suitcase any distance over cobblestone, you already know how this story ends. I'm telling you, if you have to do this, at some point while you're in Venice, you will look at your suitcase and think, why are we in a relationship like that? Ladies, Rome does not do that to you, okay? Alrighty, so far we've talked about the cost differentiation. We've talked about the part nobody prepares you for. Now, I want to talk about the part most of you just don't plan for. You don't plan for it at all. And that is how a destination acts on your body. Think about it. Your body doesn't just respond to walking. It responds to stress, friction, and constant decision making. And Rome is a city that works with your body, not against it. Excuse me. In Rome, walking feels rhythmic. It's not frantic. You walk, you stop, you sit, you eat, and you do it all over again. You actually get to drop your shoulders and relax while you're hanging out in Rome. And that matters. Because here's the part a lot of people also don't connect. Decision fatigue is physical. Every time you have to ask yourself, where do I go next? How do I get there? How much time do we have? Which we tend to do a lot when we're, cramped in a rush situation. Your nervous system is working overtime. In Rome, you're not constantly trying to calculate transportation, scanning for exits, or timing everything perfectly. In Rome, your nervous system gets a break, okay? And when that happens, your energy lasts that much longer, okay? Rome has wider streets, they have predictable surfaces, there are places to sit where you don't feel like it's off limit. Your feet are not fighting for survival by noon. Ladies, where you at? Let me hear you. Do you feel me? Let me see you put a word in the chat. My feet, my feet. Alrighty, so whatever we're doing, however we're walking, we want to make sure the surface is comfortable enough for us to last all day because we want to explore. We're in a foreign country. We want to explore all day, not just half the day. Okay, and that means you get to enjoy the whole day because your feet aren't crying out. While you're in Rome, meals are at a slower pace. Your energy evens out, and you don't have to eat on the run. Dare I say you get to eat like a human? Okay, Rome gives you space to walk without squeezing. You don't have to small yourself up and turn sideways. Space to stop without apologizing, space to sit without feeling in the way. Venice is narrow and beautiful, while Rome is wide and welcoming. And yes, Rome delivers on history. In Rome, history isn't something you schedule, it's something you bump into. You turn the corner and bam, there's a Pantheon. It's standing there quietly, older than most countries if you think about it. And you don't have to time everything perfectly to get there. Talk about the Colosseum. When you're standing in front of the Colosseum, you feel the scale because you are not rushed. You're not thinking, how long do we have? But instead, you're thinking, wow. Okay? Rome doesn't separate sacred spaces from daily life. You can step into a cathedral and a lot of times it's unplanned. And suddenly you're surrounded by centuries of art and silence. That also includes the Vatican City experience, which lands so differently when you're grounded instead of exhausted. Okay? So Rome gives you history without the homework. Because I think we've all had enough homework, okay? Alrighty. So listen, this isn't a Rome versus Venice forever. Venice deserves its own slow, intentional trip. What I'm saying is after a cruise with multiple ports, with structured days, with constant stimulation, the final destination of your trip should hold you, not test you. That's what Rome does here. I want you to think about it like this. Think about the difference between coming home after a long day, your spouse, significant other, they see your car pull up, so they come to meet you at the door and they take your bag, your briefcase, and say something like, hey, welcome home. How was your day? Something to that effect. Versus your car pulls up, nobody meets you at the door, you walk in the house, and the first thing you hear is, where have you been all day? One receives you and the other interrogates you. Rome is the version that receives you. Feel me? Okay. Alrighty, so big picture. When you zoom out, this is what we've really talked about today. And if you have any questions, now is the time to go ahead and start putting them in the chat. So what we've talked about today is how Rome acts on your body, how it lets you move, rest, recover instead of constantly adjusting. We talked about why Rome makes more sense than Venice at this point in this trip, especially when it's after a cruise where your tolerance for friction is so much lower. Okay? We also talked about the difference between a place that asks more of you and a place that actually receives you. This is not about preference. This is about design, okay? And I'll say this, especially, for all my females out there listening, thank you for tuning in. Thank you to everyone for tuning in, but especially to my females. The way a place receives you matters. We already do enough thinking in real life. The right destination lets you rest without effort. Okay? That's the reality check. And yes, if you've been listening quietly, if this trip keeps crossing your mind, if part of you is thinking, this actually feels like it was designed for me, there is still space to join us. This is not a keep up trip. It is a guided, be supported, be taken care of experience. Okay? And listen up. If you smiled earlier when I said you didn't want to think on vacation, you already know the choice. Okay? All righty, ladies. Everyone, that is all I have. That is our talk for today. The difference between Venice and Rome for a post-cruise excursion. All righty, so let me take a minute and see what kind of chats, what questions we have in the chat. Again, if you have a question, now is your time to go ahead and put your questions in the chat. I am here. You have me. Let me answer those burning questions for you. Alrighty. So what questions do you have? Let me answer your questions. I don't see any questions in the chat. Come on, talk to me. Okay, alrighty. So I don't see any questions in the chat. It doesn't mean you can't still ask your questions. If it comes to you later, just find the live replay and go ahead, put your questions in the chat, and I will go ahead and answer those questions for you. If it's a question you don't want to put out there to everyone, feel free to DM me and I will answer your question. Everyone, this has been our Saturday Travel Talk. We will see you next week, same place, same time. Have a wonderful day and stay warm because it's been pretty cold around town lately. All righty, everyone. See you all later.